Most people think the saddest stories in history are the ones filled with loud tragedies, dramatic battles, and unforgettable disasters. But sometimes the deepest sadness is quiet. It is slow. It happens in ordinary places, to ordinary people, and the world barely notices when it is happening. This is one of those stories. It is not about a single day or a single war. It is about a slow loss that lasted for years and the people who carried it in silence. In the early years after World War II, the United States entered a period of growth and optimism. Soldiers returned home, families reunited, and the economy expanded. New houses were built across the country. Suburbs grew. People believed the future would be brighter than the past. Television shows, advertisements, and speeches all told the same story. America was strong, stable, and full of opportunity. But beneath that optimism, not every community shared the same experience. In many parts of the country, especially in older urban neighborhoods, poverty remained. Jobs that once supported families began to disappear. Factories slowly closed or moved. Neighborhoods that had once been full of life became quieter. Streets that were once busy began to feel empty. One of the most painful chapters of this slow change began in the 1950s and continued for decades. It was called Urban Renewal. The name sounded hopeful, modern, and positive. Government leaders promised progress, better housing, and safer communities. They believed cities needed to be redesigned for the future. But for many Americans, this program meant something very different. Across cities like Detroit, Chicago, and New Orleans, entire neighborhoods were marked on maps. Officials looked at buildings, streets, and homes and labeled them as blighted. The words sounded technical, almost neutral, but for the people who lived there, those places were not blighted. They were home. Families had lived in those neighborhoods for generations. They knew every neighbor, every corner store, every church, every school. They had memories of weddings, funerals, celebrations, and everyday life. These communities were strong, even if the buildings were old. One day, letters began to arrive. The letters were formal and polite. They informed residents that their homes would be taken by the government. They explained that the land was needed for highways, offices, or modern housing. The language sounded reasonable. The process was legal. Compensation would be provided. But the emotional cost was never mentioned. Many residents did not believe it at first. They thought there must be a mistake. How could entire neighborhoods simply disappear? But the plans were real. Surveys were completed. Meetings were held. Construction schedules were announced. Then the machines arrived. Bulldozers stood on streets where children had played only days before. Workers placed signs. Police officers blocked access. Families packed their belongings into boxes. Some cried quietly, others tried to remain strong. Neighbors said goodbye, often not knowing where the others would go. Some families moved to public housing, others moved far away, breaking social connections that had lasted for decades. Elderly residents found the change especially painful. Many had never lived anywhere else. Some felt lost and isolated in their new environments. Churches closed, small businesses disappeared, schools lost students, and eventually shut down. What made the situation even sadder was that the new developments did not always bring the promised benefits. Highways divided communities. Large housing projects sometimes created new social problems. Economic opportunities did not always reach those who had been displaced. For many, the future became more uncertain, not less. One of the most tragic examples occurred in a neighborhood in Detroit known as Black Bottom. It had been a center of culture, music, and business. It was not perfect. It faced poverty and discrimination, but it was alive. It was vibrant. In the 1950s and 60s, most of it was destroyed to make room for highways and new development. Today, few physical traces remain. Similar stories unfolded in cities across the country. In Chicago, communities were divided. In New Orleans, historic neighborhoods changed forever. For decades, this process continued. It did not make national headlines every day. It happened slowly, piece by piece. That is why many Americans did not fully understand its scale at the time. By the 1970s, critics began speaking out. Researchers, journalists, and activists questioned whether urban renewal had harmed more people than it had helped. Some called it urban removal. They argued that planning decisions had often ignored the voices of residents. Over time, policies changed. Greater emphasis was placed on community participation. Preservation of historic neighborhoods became more important, but the damage had already been done. The sadness of this history is not only in the buildings that were lost, it is in the relationships, the memories, and the sense of belonging that disappeared.
Many families still tell stories about the neighborhoods they lost. They describe the sounds, the smells, the festivals, and everyday moments that shaped their lives. Today, when people discuss housing, inequality, and urban planning, they are still dealing with the consequences of those decisions. The story is not dramatic. It does not have a single villain or a single moment of tragedy. It is slow, it is quiet, it is complicated, but it is deeply human. And perhaps that is why it is so sad, because the greatest losses are sometimes the ones that happen without the world truly noticing. The streets are gone, the buildings are gone, but the memories remain. And for many Americans, those memories are a reminder that progress, when it forgets people, can leave behind a silence that lasts for generations.
But the story did not end when the bulldozers left. For many families, the deepest pain began after the move. At first, there was confusion. Boxes remained unopened for weeks. People tried to adjust to unfamiliar streets, unfamiliar neighbors, and unfamiliar routines. Children had to change schools. Parents had to find new jobs or travel farther to reach their workplaces. Elderly residents sat quietly by windows, watching strangers walk past, hoping to see someone they once knew. Some never adapted. In the years that followed, researchers and historians slowly began to notice patterns. Communities that had once been strong, even in poverty, had been broken apart. Social networks that provided support during hardship disappeared. When families faced financial struggles or illness, there were fewer people to help them. This slow isolation created long-term consequences. During the 1960s and 1970s, the United States experienced major social changes. Civil rights movements, protests, and political debates filled the news. Yet behind these dramatic events, there were quieter struggles that received less attention. Many displaced families found themselves in large housing projects. These buildings were designed to be modern and efficient, but in practice, they often became places of loneliness and frustration. Elevators broke, maintenance was delayed, jobs were scarce nearby. Crime increased in some areas, not because people wanted it, but because opportunity was limited. Young people growing up in these environments faced challenges their parents had never imagined. In the past, neighborhood elders had guided children, corrected mistakes, and provided support. After relocation, those informal systems weakened. Teachers, social workers, and community leaders tried to help, but the sense of belonging was difficult to rebuild. The sadness was not always visible. It did not appear in statistics immediately. It appeared in stories. Stories of grandparents who refused to talk about the past because it was too painful. Stories of parents who spent years trying to find old friends. Stories of reunions where people cried when they met again after decades. In some cities, former residents organized gatherings. They shared photographs, recipes, and memories. They tried to preserve what had been lost. One such reunion took place decades after the destruction of neighborhoods in Detroit. Hundreds of people attended. They brought faded pictures of homes, weddings, and block parties. They described the music, the laughter, and the warmth of their communities. Many said the same thing. They did not miss the buildings. They missed the people. As time passed, scholars began studying the long-term effects of displacement. They found connections between social stability and community health. Strong relationships reduced crime, improved education, and increased economic resilience. When these networks were broken, recovery could take generations. In the late 20th century, urban planners began to change their approach. Instead of large-scale demolition, they focused on rehabilitation. Instead of ignoring residents, they invited participation. Yet even these improvements could not erase the past. Some neighborhoods never fully recovered. Others transformed into new communities with different cultures and identities. By the early 2000s, another shift began. Younger generations started rediscovering history. Documentaries, books, and oral history projects recorded the experiences of those who had lived through displacement. Technology played a role. Digital archives allowed families to share stories widely. Social media connected former neighbors across states and countries. Ironically, the same technological world that had once supported large-scale planning and control now helped preserve memories. At the same time, cities faced new challenges. Rising housing prices, gentrification, and redevelopment again threatened long-term residents. The patterns of the past seemed to repeat in new forms. This raised difficult questions. Could progress and compassion exist together? Could cities grow without pushing people out? Could planning respect both efficiency and humanity? These debates continue today in cities like San Francisco and New York City, where housing shortages and rising costs force many families to leave.
For older generations, these changes bring back painful memories. They see familiar signs: construction cranes, rising rents, and uncertainty. But there is hope. Some communities now organize early. They advocate for fair housing, legal protections, and inclusive development. They demand a voice in decisions that affect their lives. This is perhaps the most important lesson of this long, quiet history. Progress is not only about buildings, it is about people, and the cost of ignoring human connection can last for generations. Today, if you walk through modern cities, you may not see the sadness directly. You may see tall buildings, busy streets, and vibrant businesses. But beneath the surface, there are stories of loss and resilience. In some places, plaques and memorials mark where neighborhoods once stood. In others, there is no sign at all. But in the memories of those who lived there, the streets still exist. The laughter still echoes. The music still plays. And the sadness, though quiet, remains. Because history is not only about what is built, it is also about what is forgotten. And sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones that almost disappeared.